Hello, BookTube. I did indeed go to the Brattle Bookshop here in Boston. I had been thinking about it yesterday. It's a beautiful, bright, blue day. A little chilly, but clear. No ice on the ground, no sleet, no nothing like that. And the bean was sleepy, so all aspects were in favor of it. So I went to the Brattle. And for those of you who are new to the channel, and there are new people, we are slowly inching towards 6,000 subscribers. Somebody pointed that out to me the other day, and I went and looked, and it's absolutely true. Unbelievable, but true. And any of you who might be new, the Brattle Bookshop is a used bookstore here in Boston. They're in the heart of old downtown Boston, and they're great. It's a 3-story building packed with books. First 2 floors, general stuff like you would find in a normal bookstore, just arranged by category. And then the 3rd floor, slightly more collectible books, or intensely more collectible books. You can spend a fortune on the 3rd floor on one book if you want to. And that would be great enough, because as you can tell, when you walk in the front door, you see the buying table right away is right there on the 1st floor, and it's always changing. That's the amazing thing about the Brattle, is that the turnaround is enormous. It's not one of those used bookstores where you notice a book in nautical history and you think, I don't know if I want that or not. I'll ponder it for a month and then I'll come back and get it. If I do, if you do that at the Brattle, it will be gone. But in addition to that, there's a sale lot right next to the Brattle Bookshop that has $3, $5, and $1 books. Most of them in excellent condition. The Brattle tends not to put junk out there the way so many used bookstores with outside carts tend to do. The outside carts, for instance, at the Strand in New York City, tend to be where the shop's junk goes. The Brattle doesn't tend to do that. In fact, sometimes they will put Mylar covers over to protect books that they then put out in the sale lot. Now, the sale lot is just a marvel. It's constantly changing, and you never know what you're going to find there. It's not organized in any way except by price. And you can walk away with an armload of great books. Like today, when I was there, I just reflexively keep track of these things, even though I don't need them anymore. I saw literally an armload from wrist to shoulder of classics of the Western canon that you could have got for $15 total. So I knew that I was going to go there, so I did. I arranged a couple of small errands in the area so that it wouldn't feel like I was just going out to get books. Because in my situation, getting a stack of books free every day in the mail, making a day of going out to get books would feel a little on the insane side. So I made a few other errands, and then I headed off. And on the way there, I finished a book. In my bag, I have a little zippered pouch that fits a mass market paperback. So I read Regency romances. I put a Regency romance there at all times, and I just finished this. Norma Lee Clark's The Daring Duchess. A story about a young woman named Mary Marshall, who is in her own right the Duchess of Runsford. Her father made her a duchess in her own right. So she has the title, the lands, and the money all her own. They're not dependent on any husband. And she's just come of age and had her coming out season in London. And as this book begins, she is making a short trip. And she's waylaid. Her carriage is waylaid by bandits. And she gets away. But it looks terrible. Hair all afright, gown all ripped, her wrists cut and all. And she stops the next person that she sees on the road, and it turns out that it's there's an impoverished earl who lives in the neighborhood. His father and his brother gambled away all of the estate's money, and he is trying hard to rebuild his estate by working as a farmer in the fields with his own hands and to rehabilitate the finances. But he has a young nephew who has just come to live with him, a little boy, who is terrified, doesn't know what's happening at all, and the Earl is not really the paternal type. And so when Mary Marshall shows up at their house, she has grown in London and in her own home with her oppressively, straight-laced aunt. She has grown a little tired of having everyone wait on the Duchess, your grace this and your grace that. So she decides to go incognito. When she's rescued by these people, she decides not to tell them who she is and to beg for their help, to just, can I stay here and recover? And she falls in love with the little boy and asks if, as long as I'm staying here, can I work as a governess? Can I be a governess to the boy? And the old, wise housekeeper, Mrs. Heaven, of the Earl, she's pretty sure that there's more to this stranger than meets the eye. She's, for instance, pretty sure that this stranger is gentle-born and has never worked as a governess before, has never worked at anything before. The Mary Marshall does not know how to dress herself. She does not know how to do her own hair. Nothing like that. And the housekeeper immediately sees it. The Earl is too busy working to really notice it until he learns the truth, until a neighbor of his, a busybody neighbor of his, informs him that this is deception is going on under his roof, and he loses his temper. But by then we know that the two of them are meant for each other, and I finished it on the ride into the Brattle, and it was so good. This is, I think, I'm looking at my romance shelf now. This is like the third Regency romance that I have read in a row that was just fantastic. Some of them are, most of them are just satisfying, but not fantastic, where you just, the last 15 pages, you can't even stop smiling. And this was one of them. This is the third in a row. So now I have to pick another Regency romance today, because I'm going out. I'm not going to go anywhere at all tomorrow, but I'll be going out again probably next week. And I'm going to want a new Regency romance in my bag. It's got to be one of these. And I'm worried I'm going to pick a dud. I can always change it, but still. Anyway, so that was the first book, is The Daring Duchess. I'm not really sure why it's called that. The Duchess doesn't do really anything daring except for hide her identity. I think The Incognito Duchess would have been a much better description. But the book was wonderful. And I don't think I've ever read a Regency by Norma Lee Clarke before. I'll have to see if I have any others here by her. But anyway, then we get on to the books at the Brattle. I found 5 books at the Brattle. I want to show them to you. The first one is a pattern. I've mentioned before that there, with the sale carts outside, there is a karma. There are a couple of karmas. One of them, one of the main things about the sale carts outside is that you must not try to bully them. That's not how it works. You don't go to the sale cart saying, oh, I'm going to look for a copy of X, Y, or Z. You won't find it. And not only will you not find it on that trip, you'll never find it. Whereas, if you just say, oh, I'm going to wait and see what the carts offer to me, you'll be very pleased. That's karma number 1. Karma number 2 about the Brattle that I have often found is that if you find something at the Brattle, that's interesting. If you find 2 examples of that something, that's no longer a coincidence, and it stands to reason that you will probably find more, because the Brattle goes out on buying trips all the time. And if somebody has, like, for instance, all of the Edgar Rice Burroughs Tarzan novels, they'll sell them all at the same time, or their grieving relatives will. And that goes into a box, and it goes into a pile of boxes in the basement, and sometimes it sits down there for weeks or months. Other times it comes up right away. Sometimes you get 10 boxes from that house. Maybe 2 of them will come up, and the other 8 will be left mixed in with the others and come up eventually. And my point is, if you see 2 Tarzan novels in the exact same editions out on the sale lot, chances are you're going to see more. And that applies to anything. And I mentioned in a couple of earlier Brattle hauls that I have decided in 2019 to sort of honor what I know when it comes to my own book collection. Things that I know that I love enough to keep rereading, those things I want to have regardless of what else I have. And one of those are the collected essays of Stephen Jay Gould. He was a dear man, a wonderful customer, a wonderful correspondent, a wonderful teacher, and a wonderful writer. He was a fantastic writer of natural history. He wrote for Natural History magazine. He wrote a column called This Wonderful Life every month for years. And a lot of thought, and he was very literary. He was also a sports fan, and he poured everything into those columns. And so a lot of them are absolute gems. And no subject was beyond his curiosity. Everything interested him. So the collections, ever since Darwin, Bully for Brontosaurus, Dinosaur in the Haystack, all of those collections are absolutely wonderful. And I've been seeing a couple at the Brattle, and when that happens, you know you're going to see more, and I did. I saw The Flamingo Smile today. And I found, a year ago, I found a Penguin Orange Spine trade paperback of this very book by Stephen Jay Gould at the Brattle. And I thought, great, I do want all of Stephen Jay Gould. But somebody asked me for it, so I sent it away to them. I figured the Brattle will provide. I will eventually see it again. I was kind of expecting that trade paperback again, but instead, obviously somebody had all of the dust jacketed hardcovers of Stephen Jay Gould and sold them all to the Brattle. so eventually they're all going to show up on the outside sale carts. I just hope I'm there to see them. But so far I'm doing quite well. I have quite a few of them. I don't as yet have a hardcover dust jacket edition of Ever Since Darwin, his first book, the first book in this series, not what is it, Urchin in the Storm or The Mismeasurement of Man. The first book that I'm talking about, the first one that became a commercial success, was Ever Since Darwin. And then there was The Panda's Thumb and Hen's Teeth, and those took off, and then it was a reliable thing. And I want all of those, but I want to start with Ever Since Darwin, and I don't think I have a copy. And I'm just hoping that I will find it. This is just a collection of natural history essays on all kinds of subjects, and I love it. I have been rereading the first 2 volumes that I found, and just enjoying them even more. Turns out that Stephen Jay Gould, it doesn't turn out, I should have known it, he's an encyclopedic reader, and you should have seen his office. Oh my God, it was a rabbit warren of books everywhere, literally, so that he could have anything he needed at his fingertips. So it turns out that reading these essays again is wonderful, because I'm picking up on lots of stuff I didn't pick up on before, as my own reading broadens. So that was wonderful to find. And the other one was also, this next one was also a wonderful find, because I get rid of copies all the time. I get them and I get rid of them for a very specific reason, because people ask me for exactly this kind of book and say, what's the best thing? And I say, this is the best thing, and I have a copy. So, if you're in, I don't know, Elks Bend, Indiana, or whatever, or Prophet's Beard, Wyoming, and there are no used bookstores within 200 miles of you, but plenty of feed stores, then why wait? Why ask you to go on Amazon and get a book that might be falling apart when it gets to you, when I know that I have a copy I can send you? That I do all the time. As a result, I'm always rebuying books. And that's this one, John Guy, Tudor England. This is a 1-volume book of just what the title says, Tudor England, the personalities, the politics, the social movements, and I get rid of it. The reason why I get rid of it is because people ask me, is there a really good 1-volume introductory book about Tudor England? This is one of them. There are a couple of others. That are also really good. This is the most extensive one, the biggest one, that is also non-specialist. And with books like this was part of the Oxford History of England, I think, a series. I think there was a whole series of these. I'm not sure that this book will tell me. There was one for like Anglo-Saxon England, and anyway, with books like this, you always worry. Like I've said, you always worry with books like this that the risk you run is that the author is just ticking boxes and is not going to bring anything to bear. Doesn't actually care about the subject. Is just writing a book for a contract. And has a certain amount of time, and is going to take you through, you've got Henry VII and the Wars of the Roses. You've got how promising Henry VIII was when he was a young man. You've got his marriage to Catherine. You've got his lack of a male heir. You've got the wives. You've got the break from Rome. You've got the Church of England. You've got the boy king and his regents. You've got the Bloody Mary and Queen Elizabeth and all that. It lends itself to programmatic autopilot writing. So with a book like this, what you want to look for is whether or not the author is inserting himself or herself, whether or not the author is infusing the text with genuine insights and also with wit, if possible. And this has both in abundance. It's just a joy to read. A joy to read. And I don't have a copy. The last copy I have, I sent away. So now I do. So I was glad to snatch it up, especially since I don't think any of these cost me anything. I think I was working on credit the whole time. Then the next one is a rebuy. I've had it many times. I've had many, many copies. Haven't had a copy in a long time. So I'm really happy to. This is Ravens in Winter. This is Bern Heinrich's great book. He wrote this author. I've praised him on this channel before. He never wrote a bad book. But this is, I think, his greatest book. Most heartfelt, most surprising, most consistently thought-provoking. And that's all that it's about, what ravens are like. And he followed ravens and watched them for his sins all the time and knew a lot about them. He wrote another book on ravens, The Mind of the Raven. But this was a revelation to me and a lot of other people. And it's a classic that I don't have. I knew as soon as I saw it that I didn't have it, so I grabbed it. Then this next one, I have not read. This next one is one that I have not read. And I want to. This is by Franklin and Mary Wickwire. And I want to read this. This is by Franklin and Mary Wickwire. And I want to. This is by Franklin and Mary Wickwire. And I want to. This is by Franklin and Mary Wickwire. And I want to. This is by Franklin and Mary Wickwire. And I want to. This is by Franklin and Mary Wickwire. And I want to. This is by Franklin and Mary Wickwire. And I want to. This is by Franklin and Mary Wickwire. And I want to. This is by Franklin and Mary Wickwire. And I want to. This is by Franklin and Mary Wickwire. And I want to. This is by Franklin and Mary Wickwire. And I want to. This is by Franklin and Mary Wickwire. And I want to. This is by Franklin and Mary Wickwire. And I want to. This is by Franklin and Mary Wickwire. And I want to. This is by Franklin and Mary Wickwire. And I want to. This is by Franklin and Mary Wickwire. And I want to. This is by Franklin and And it is called Cornwallis, The American Adventure. That's the title on the spine. This is what the book actually looks like. I reinforce it because it was falling apart when I got it. But that is what the book actually looks like. It amazed me when I looked at the cover. I realized, oh my God, Lord Cornwallis looked a lot like James Boswell. But this is a book about Cornwallis, whose obdurate nature and tactical stupidity America, my country, owes its existence. Far more than it owes its existence to the military incompetence of George Washington. It was Cornwallis's to lose, not Washington's to win. And always when I encounter Cornwallis in American Revolution books, like for instance the great one by Roy Atkinson that's coming out, or Rick Atkinson that's coming out later this year, The British Are Coming. When I encounter Cornwallis in American Revolution books, I always want more. I think there was probably more to the man than what I'm willing to give him credit. I mean, I don't think he should ever have commanded troops in battle, but he had an enormous effect on the world, which isn't given to a whole lot of people to say. Not just what he did in America with the colonies, in the war against the colonies in America, but also in India, where he had a far more salubrious effect. I think he was far more effective as an administrator than a field military leader. And I confess, I have never read a biography of Lord Cornwallis. At least I don't think I have. When I saw this, I immediately thought, with that burst of recognition you have when you see a book you haven't thought of in forever. Because a part of me was thinking I have read an enormous biography of Lord Cornwallis that was everything. Birth, upbringing, America, India, everything else. All the way to death. And then I took a closer look at this, and it's not that. This is Cornwallis in America, hence the title. What is it called? The American Adventure. This is Cornwallis in America. I imagine I'll get a lot about him before and after. But the huge focus here is on one part of this man's long career. I won't say that disappointed me, because I still want to read this book, very much so. I want to gobble it up. But it makes me wonder now, did I ever read a soup to nuts biography of Cornwallis? And if I didn't, I'd like to. I'd like to know if one is out there. I'll have to give it a look. But one of the reasons why this was on my mind, one of the reasons I would have grabbed it anyway for $1. But one of the reasons that I grabbed it extra was because I'm going to be reading this tonight. Lord Cornwallis is Dead. By Nico Slate. This is a post-colonial study of India and America, where Cornwallis was deeply involved in both, hence the title. So I thought they made a good pairing, and that is another thing about the karma of the Brattle, is that you will pick a book on whatever it is. I don't even know. Someone climbing in the Alps, and you will go to the Brattle and you will see a 100-year-old book about someone's account of climbing in the Alps, and it's fate. You just have to spend that $1 and get that book. So this is on my mind. And then the last one I want to show you is something that made the rounds. It got just hugely praised everywhere. No critic that wrote a review of this thing did anything except sing its praises. And I never got a copy. It's well inside the time for, sometimes we talk on this channel about how I will hold up a book and I say I never got a copy because it was before my time returning to book reviewing. So nobody in the book providing, the publicist world, knew that I was even still alive, much that I still had opinions on books and could attract an audience. But this isn't a case of that. This book came out and I just impatiently waited, tapping my toes the whole time for somebody to send me a copy, and nobody ever did. Nobody ever did. And it's this. It's Ruth Scorer, John Aubrey, My Own Life. And it's about the famous biographer, John Aubrey, whose Aubrey's Brief Lives is one of the odd and utterly irreplaceable classics of English literature. And he was a fascinating guy, an absolutely fascinating figure, but he did not, as you might think, my own life. He did not leave us my own life. Instead, he made copious allusions to his own life throughout all of his writing. So what Ruth Scorer did was go through all of that writing, cobble together all of those references, ground them in research to find out who was around and what do we know about those researches, and then write it in the form of an autobiography of where it just goes through Aubrey's scattered reflections of his life. And when this was getting press, when everybody was talking about this and reviewing it and praising that approach to biography, this thing has the 2 cover blurbs are by Mary Beard and Hilary Mantel. You get that as an author, you get that, you can die and go to heaven. You have achieved nirvana. But one of these, it's Mary Beard, I think, who says, yeah, a game changer in the world of biography. One of the things that everybody commented on, and one of the things that I was noticing in the reviews of this book was how innovative an approach that is. And I was thinking, when I was reading those reviews, well, yeah, that is innovative, but didn't I read something a lot like that? Very similar to that in approach? And I did, and I figured out what it was. The Penguin Classic of Aubrey's Brief Lives is annotated. It's annotated and introduced by Oliver Lawson Dick. And his introductory essay is like 60 pages long in this thing, and it is absolutely incredible. It's a biographical essay of Aubrey that, I don't know if you're going to be able to make this out. Every time the text moves to italics, he is quoting from one of those allusions that Aubrey makes to his own life. So this is a smaller and more circumscribed version of what Ruth Scuer does in this book, where you let Aubrey tell his own story. Only the conceit here is that Aubrey is actually doing the telling, whereas Lawson Dick is just grounding an introduction to Aubrey's life on Aubrey's own writings verbatim, quoting them, which is far more than he needed to do for this introduction. I firmly believe, I don't know if there's anybody still alive who would even confirm it, but I firmly believe that this is a Penguin classic. Some of them, you will see them from time to time, that was built around the introduction. I firmly believe that Penguin got that and realized they had access to that introduction and thought, well, this is worth an edition of Aubrey's Brief Lives just to run that with it. I could be wrong about that, but one way or another, that long essay by Lawson Dick is just bravura performance in biographical reconstruction. And I was thinking about that the whole time I was reading reviews of this, and then this occurred. Then this just appeared at the Brattle. It's a brand new book. This is, I think, the UK edition too. This is not. This is Chatto and Windus. So this edition was never even for sale in America. I don't think this book ever had an American edition. Somebody bought it, read it on the plane ride over, and then got rid of it at the Brattle. And there it was on the shelf. So I get a chance to finally read this well after the date. This was years ago by now. This was 2015. Good Lord. But I'm still going to enjoy it because I love Aubrey's Brief Lives. Absolutely love this book. Just cannot get enough of it. It is wonderful. And I also love that long introduction. I've sometimes picked up this book and just reread that introduction. And this seems like it will be very similar and much longer. So there you go. That was my Brattle trip for today. I got Ruth Scuer's book on John Aubrey. At last, after all this time. I got a book on Lord Cornwallis in America that will probably, go backwards and forwards a bit too. I got a classic of nature writing, Ravens in Winter. No nature writing library complete without it. I got Tudor England by John Guy. Hopefully I'll hold on to this volume because I'm at least long enough to reread it. And I got The Flamingo Smile, the latest in my collection of Stephen Jay Gould essay collections. I think I have 6 of them now. I'll just keep going until I have them all. And hopefully that will all happen at the Brattle. That somebody is just getting rid of them and they're slowly coming up from the basement and will slowly be going out into the sale lot. I don't know when I'll be going back to the Brattle. The weather forecasts are starting to predict a winter storm in the middle of next week. And I just don't react to those the way I used to. It's terrible when you get to be 28. You don't react to those things the way you used to. So to be determined. But in the meantime, I'll wrap this up. That's quite enough book talk out of me. And I'll see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.